Now, Clare Wood didn't know her ex-boyfriend had convictions for violence against women. He strangled her to death in 2009, and 10 years ago now, Clare's law was brought in across England and Wales to prevent more deaths like Clare's. There are basically two parts to it. Firstly, the right to ask. That means that people can ask the police whether a partner or former partner has a record of domestic abuse. And it's been used more and more each year. In 2018, people found out that a partner or ex did have an abusive past about 2,500 times. Last year, though, this number had risen to more than 9,000. But there's a second arm of Clare's law, and that's called the right to know. There you go. And this allows police to proactively warn somebody that their partner has a history of abuse, even though they haven't asked. And again, it's been used more and more. In 2019, police warned 4,008 times about a partner's abusive past, despite not being asked. By 2023, this figure had nearly doubled to 7,609. But do all police forces give out a similar number of these right-to-know warnings? Well, after adjusting for population size among the 41 police forces we could compare, we found some were proactively telling people about violent partners far more than others. Last year, the 10 police forces with the highest use of the scheme had, on average, a rate of 39 disclosures per 100,000 people. Now, if every force had that level of use, police would have warned people about abusive partners more than 21,000 times last year, rather than the actual number of warnings, much lower, which was around 7,500. In other words, if all police forces had behaved like the top 10, police would have given out around 14,000 more warnings about abusive partners. Now, the way right to know works is complex, but this suggests there's still some way to go before all police forces are using it to its fullest. Well, the Home Office told us Clare's law was an important tool designed to keep people safe, and they said they were working with the police to improve its implementation. The National Police Chiefs Council said it too was working with forces to share best practice. And while Clare's law was introduced 10 years ago now, guidance to ensure a consistent approach across forces was only released in 2021, which, it said, had led to improvements, but they knew there was still more to do.
Well, Carol Witcher, Clare's aunt, joins me now. Thanks very much for coming in. I mean, what do you make of that really wide disparity in how Clare's law is being applied?
Well, it's very disappointing when you see that, 14,000 more people could have been advised that they were with a dangerous partner, and every opportunity lost to disclose that vital information can result in a fatality.
I mean, it's critical information, or it can be, can't it?
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, Clare didn't get that advice. And Michael's vision was that...
That's your brother who helped found
his vision was that the disclosures would save other families the same, the grief that he suffered when Clare was murdered.
Why do you think there is this huge disparity? You're looking at an average of 39 disclosures per 100,000 in the very highest use of this in forces. Some forces just 5.
Well, I think from what I've gathered, I have engaged with forces and have engaged with the Assistant Commissioner. And unfortunately, when the law came into being, a lot of the forces weren't prepared. There was no statutory guidance for the police. So some police forces dealt with it differently. And what I've asked for is a level playing field. Let's follow the flagship forces, whatever they're doing, do it right. Let's get the rest of the police forces to do the same.
And what are you hearing from police forces? You're talking to them directly now to say this has to be better. And what are they saying in response?
Well, to be fair, they've been very honest and transparent, and the responses I've had from various lead domestic abuse inspectors have said, you know, that those figures were based on last year, and you know, they are making very positive moves to improve this.
But where does the improvement come? Because the police will tell us, and they have told us, it's often about resources, but it's about a mindset too, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to come from the top. It's got to come from, you know, the Metropolitan Police. It's got to come from the individual police commissioners of the regions that we're talking about.
But it's about taking every call seriously, isn't it?
Absolutely. And every life matters. So, you know, all I've ever asked and expect is that those that are designated to do these disclosures do so to the best of their ability in a time frame proportionate to the danger that the applicant is in.
And that is critical, isn't it, the time frame?
Critical.
Because we know with that new guidance that you've talked about, the timeline for disclosing reduced from 35 days to 28 days as best practice. That's the guidance. But we spoke to a woman whose force did respond to her within the time frame, but it was too late. By the time they came to her, she says she had been raped by a man she was in a relationship with. It must be quicker if that information comes to the force more quickly. Again,
that is something that I've asked the question. With the technology that they have and the databases they have, if there is a dangerous individual in a relationship, surely it can be reasonably quickly flagged up. You know, the police can tell whether you've got motor insurance and MOT. Surely someone with previous, whether it's other arrests, gives a pattern of behaviour that should immediately bring that person to the police attention.
And just briefly, this became your brother's life work after his daughter died.
Yes, he spent the last 12 years of his life. He campaigned to get the law changed because when he found out that these perpetrators were hiding behind data protection, he said that's wrong. And he had to get the law changed.
And the fact that people are using it more and more, it still needs work, but that must be...
Yes, we can't be complacent. There's over 2 million people in the UK affected by domestic abuse, and that's only the ones that are known to the police or the domestic abuse agencies.
Clare Wood, thank you very much for coming in. Thanks very much.